For over 30 years, my next guest has spoken in over 23,000 schools, middle schools and high schools in the United States. And his ministry and his outreach to young people bring him to Canada. And his time in Canada brings us here to 100 Huntley Street. Bob Lenz is his name. Bob, it's so good to meet you.
John, it's good to be here.
This is our first time to meet.
First time here.
Well, I want to tell people all about you, but I also want them to see from the very top of the interview this great book. You'll see a shot of it here in a second. It's called Dignity Revolution, Standing Up for the Value of Every Person. Here's what Bob says in summary before we get into this. He says, if this book does one thing, I hope it will teach people how to stop judging others by how they look or what they can or cannot do, but instead see each individual as someone that needs love and deserves respect. That really echoes our approach here on 100 Huntley Street.
Well, that's really what it's about, right? I mean, when I look at youth today and I look at how many are struggling with the value of who they are and the self-harm that's going on all the way to suicide, and then how we're treating one another, what message do they need more than you matter, you're valuable, and no matter what people have done to you, no matter what people have said to you, no matter how you've been treated or even the mistakes you've made, you haven't lost your value.
You're in front of thousands of kids every single year and have now for decades, and that is one of the hardest audiences. Plus, Bob, it's just an audience that is constantly changing and going through vast amounts of changes now with social media. I think you are in 100 public schools a year?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so just tell us what you're doing and introduce us, because I'm just going to sit back and watch this because this is a fascinating story.
Well, growing up myself, I had two special need siblings, a brother who had multiple handicaps, mental retardation, scoliosis, curvature of the spine, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and a sister who had special needs who is in the book. And so growing up, then had my own speech impediment. I had to get marched out of the normal class to go to the special ed class. And that was hard enough, and then people would laugh and say, look, he's retarded just like his brother. Oh. And I remember that pain, and two things happen when somebody's bullied. You want to what? Either run away and hide, and I'm not worthwhile, and just hide away from the popular kids, or you want to what? Fight back. So when we see school shootings, when we see stuff, we're like, okay, what's the approach? How do you tell people they're valuable without fighting back, and then they're the one that's in trouble, or without hiding or self-destruction?
Right.
And so when that came up, and I'm like, did my brother have value? He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, never went to school. Did his life matter? Because some people, like Hitler and T4, look up T4, Strauss 4, it meant in Hitler's regime, life not worthy of life. And I had to answer, if they don't, okay, then maybe mine doesn't either because I didn't measure up. But if my brother Tim's life and if Lois had value, then so does every one of these kids who are attempting suicide and struggling to feel that emptiness inside.
Well, Bob, was there a catalytic moment for you? Was this a process? Because oftentimes kids that are victims of bullies become bullies themselves, exactly. Or they go sometimes down a spiral of defeat and lack of self-esteem and self-respect, that they become almost closeted and not a part of society anymore. What happened to you?
I think for me, I had a teacher. I said after the speech impediment and had to get marched out to the special ed class, John, I said, I'm never doing this again. I'm never taking their speech course. But it was mandatory in high school to graduate, and I got a C-. And my teacher, Mr. Rosenbaum, true story, told me never to go into public speaking. And so I'm here to rebel. I'm here to rebel. So I think watching my mom and her love for my brother and sister going, you know what? Because of love, they mattered. A handicapped kid who the world would call a vegetable, he mattered. And then I thought, what if these youth knew love? What if they knew the ultimate love?
And so much of what you do is rooted in a passion for our Lord, isn't it?
It's so much. I mean, I'm in the public school, and I can't talk Jesus in the school.
Sure.
But we can talk value. We can talk principles. We can talk, and I feel like I'm a John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Prepare you the way of the Lord. Like if we're going to plant a field, you have to first, did you ever see a field that has all the rocks around the outside? You have to remove the rocks so we can plow the field.
Right.
And today we're just throwing seeds out and it's landing on the rocks. And I'm saying, let's talk about value.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the worth of why did God, are we worthy? No. Are we all sinners? Yes. But did God say we're worth it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because all of us created in the image of God. And all recipients of the love of God. Sometimes you don't feel like it, but God loves us.
And that intrinsic worth is what we're talking about. When Hitler looked at the elderly, when he looked at the mentally ill, when he looked at the handicapped, when he looked at even the gay and lesbian, he said, life not worthy of life.
Right.
And if anybody's supposed to have a different message, shouldn't it be us?
That's right.
Shouldn't it be us saying, you know what? Every person is valuable.
Let's talk about this word dignity that's center to the book title, Dignity Revolution. What are you trying to do in this book? As I've looked through it, it's wonderful, but there's a lot of content in here. This isn't a picture album.
No, it's actually written in a way, it's story for kids, it's my heart, but it also has, what do you do if you have a kid, your child who's being bullied? What if you have a student who does feel like they're not worthwhile? For a teacher, there's sections on teacher, there's worksheets in there for follow-up. So it's written for the public school, but it's really doing it. The whole purpose is this. We have done a good job at the church talking about depravity, right? And that's why Christ had to die. But have we done a good job talking about dignity without becoming a secular humanist?
Yeah.
How do I say you matter without saying, become one with the tree?
Yeah.
How do I say, and even the bullying thing, because a lot of parents that are Christians just go, just stand up and just that. We don't have to get into that. But what we're talking about here is going a respect issue of a person, of who they are on the inside.
You have here, I'm looking here, just practical tools, like you'll have an article here that you've written, and then you provide a national domestic abuse hotline, a national child abuse hotline that is available. You are all about people understanding that they have origin and destiny.
Well, exactly.
You're just not a piece of protoplasm flowing around here.
I can't explain why I believe in creation. I'm not smart. Like, I believe in brain surgery. That doesn't mean you want me to do yours, right? But little Barney, remember the Barney puzzle? The purple dinosaur? 50 pieces can't come down together by chance.
Yeah.
And if 50 pieces in a puzzle can't, then what about the DNA in just one person? So I believe that the thumbprint of the Creator himself is on every person. So no matter what their color, no matter what their creed even, no matter what their economics, no matter what their choices, we need to show love and respect for every person.
Okay, Bob, so when you go into these public schools, how much time have you got?
We go a full hour.
Okay.
What we do is we come in, and we'd love to come to people's schools. We come in with an animated illusionist. So he's an illusionist, and he does mime, and he's open for Howie Mandel and Ray Romano, and he's worked Vegas.
So very high level.
Very high level. We come with a full sound system, and then we come in, and so they're expecting to be lectured to.
Sure.
We come in, and we say if they can laugh. I'm not a comedian, but I think I'm a funny storyteller.
Yeah.
And if they'll laugh, they'll listen. And if they listen, they'll learn. But then we get to share about, like, a boy who was a wrestler. He had he was hearing impaired. But the wrestlers put him in the shower, and they all urinated on him. Over and over again, he finally had enough courage to tell his coach. And the coach said, I'll take care of it. But John, guess what? He never did anything. And then finally, I can talk about it because it came out and some people lost their jobs. But the worst part of that story is how the community is still now shunning that family almost worse than the beginning, and going, how are we going to turn this around? Because what has been proven, if instead of being a bystander and not say anything when wrong is happening, if you become an upstander, stand up for somebody, 57% of all bullying will stop within 10 seconds. If I'm going, hey, that's not right.
It's just a peer pressure that kids relate to, whether positively or negatively.
Exactly.
They'll stop the nonsense. So you go in for this hour. When it's done, you're not going into, it's not an evangelistic service. It's an inspirational, motivational hour. When it's over, do kids have an opportunity to come up and talk to you after it's done, or do you provide resources? How does it work?
Two things. We want the we believe that every person, because of the abuse, we want to identify these sources of abuse or bullying or self-harm or drug abuse or suicide intentions, and then have them resources in the school as well. So we have a program that will last for a week, do a Dignity Revolution campaign. And then we have a website where kids can sign the Dignity Pledge to treat everybody with respect. But then we also invite them back at night. And almost every time we go into a school, we say, you know what, it takes a whole community to raise a child, and the faith element is part of that. So we totally separate the faith, from the school, but then we invite them back at night. And about 90% allow us to invite them back at night, sponsored at a church, by a church.
Yeah.
And there we get to share the real
news of Christ. This Dignity Pledge, is it in this book?
It's
or
in the book.
Is it
Yeah,
something that you could share with us? Is it something that you've memorized through the years?
Actually, the basic pledge says, I promise to treat every person with dignity and respect. But the pledge itself has 10 points, and the first 9 are the fruits of the Spirit. So it says, I pledge to be loving, I pledge to be kind, I pledge to be joyful, I pledge. And to actually do that in a way, it's written for the public school. Matter of fact, it's co-written with the Health Teacher of the Year. USA Today said one of the top 10 teachers in America, she's in the Teacher Hall of Fame. She co-wrote it with me so we can give it to the students so that they can say, this works with the parents, the teachers, and the kids.
We've got Bob Lenz here, and this is the book. It's Dignity Revolution. It's available in our e-store, and we would love for you to be able to get it. And Bob, we've provided website and information as well for people to get in touch with you. We want Bob to stay with us. We're going to continue our conversation. It may follow later in this program, or you can grab it on Crossroads 360, or it may be just as another episode entirely. But we just got to keep talking, got to keep moving forward and finding out about this passion and joy in your life. And I want to thank you for the way you committed yourself to the next generation.
We have to, our whole thing is 18. 2 out of 3 people come to Christ before they're 18. So 18, faith for the next generation. We can't give up. We can't sit by. We have to get involved.
Bob, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, John.
Stay at it. Stay encouraged.
Thanks, man.
We appreciate what you're doing.